Hey family, welcome to my channel. My name is Glacia and I'm an intuitive life coach, health coach, and I'm an Ascension guide. So this video is about October and really into the end of the year. And it's an Ascension update. So it's an energy update. And I just wanted to share some of the things that I have been receiving from my higher self. And that the primary thing that I wanted to talk about is the heaviness that people are going through. So we're going through a collective clearing of a lot of the ancestral trauma, right? And so this can be like pulling everything out of the closet and doing a really big clean. And it's uncomfortable, and things will level out and feel okay for a little bit, and then you'll drop back into it again. Now, this can be extremely challenging, and one of the symptoms of it too is to feel like you just don't care anymore, right? And this is actually bringing in the detachment from the lower grids and from the inorganic grids, the inverted grid system, right? Now, this allows us to focus on our own ascension processes instead of being derailed and taken into other people's ascension processes, right? Now, we're all in this together, but at the same time, we're not all having the same activations or going through the same shifts at the same time. So focusing on your path and showing up as your greatest good, right? Into your greatest good, which when you shift into your greatest good, you're actually shifting into the greatest good, because your greatest good cannot be somebody else's detriment, right? So by focusing on your inner journey, your inner path, you allow yourself to show up in a way that benefits the collective. Now, when we go through really heavy periods, what we're doing is we're noticing that we don't want to be here half the time, right? So when you're going through something heavy, you're like, I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm fed up. I quit. But it's in those moments that we're actually releasing old parts of ourselves. We're letting go of the older desires or the lower parts or lower aspects of our identity, right? So it's a form of a spiritual death, and it's not physical death. It's not your death of your spiritual body. What I'm saying, it's a spiritual awareness that is part of your identity death that existed in lower levels or was tied into lower timelines. Now, it can be very challenging and painful. And when we start clearing the ancestral trauma, the past life trauma, and the current life trauma, it can be very overwhelming. So noticing periods of overwhelm is extremely common right now. Now, when you get into these periods of overwhelm, what do? You have to do some tapping for EFT, or you have to do some breath work or some type of somatic release for the body. So all of those things are necessary for you to kind of move through this and to be able to shift into that higher level of yourself that you're being called into, right? So we're being initiated into higher levels of ourselves because this is what we've been asking for. That's the ascension process, right? Accessing that higher consciousness and then taking action on what you receive from that higher consciousness. So one of the physical symptoms that you may notice is a feeling of being in an elevator or like you're dropping in an airplane. If you've ridden on an airplane before, you'll notice when you start descending into the airport, you kind of have this weird feeling in your stomach, just like when you're on an elevator. And it's almost dizziness, kind of dizziness, but not quite dizzy. But it's a very interesting sensation. And this comes after the activations that we have and is part of the integration of the new energies. So when we have these huge influxes of energy, we end up having the breakdowns, right? So I've been saying this for years. I mean, breakdowns lead to breakthroughs, and breakthroughs also lead to breakdowns, because we're continuously breaking down the old identity and the lower aspects that were held in the lower timelines. So if you've been noticing you feel kind of dizzy all of a sudden, or like you're in an elevator, that's you shifting into higher consciousness, okay? That's you gaining more access into the multidimensional self, right? So pay attention when that happens, and don't think there's something wrong with you, because there's not. You're just shifting, okay? And you're becoming very aware. Now, one of the huge things that we're going through, my higher self explained it to me like this. We're in a sort of a storm, right? An energetic storm, or a spiritual growth storm, if you will. And what that looks like is kind of like when the ocean is raging and there's a storm and waves come crashing in. They spray water everywhere and sand is all over the place and there's foam and debris and all kinds of stuff is going on. But after that, the calm comes. And so we're going to be going through this kind of energetic storm until around late December to mid-January. And many of you are probably groaning because I just said that. But really, if you think about it, we're taking this fast track into trauma clearing. So we're clearing the trauma and healing ourselves very rapidly. We could drag this out for years and years and years, or we can go through it in an intense way and heal it and clear it. So some of you are going through the very long, drawn out path to healing. And that's okay. There's no right or wrong. It's all about what your spirit is guiding you to do. Now, some of you are taking the fast track, and that means all these different things are clearing back to back to back, and you feel really overwhelmed, right? So if you're taking the fast track, thank you for doing that. And also if you're taking the gentle track, thank you for doing that, because we're all contributing to the same momentum that's building in this ascension process for the collective. Going through intense detox symptoms is another one of the major symptoms that people will be experiencing. Now, this can be like liver detox. This can be whatever type of detox, cellular detox. And your body, you may notice that you're dealing with a lot of different symptoms off and on. And something I want to touch base on, somebody in the comments on the digestive video pointed out something that's really important that I really should have mentioned in that video. So I'd like to mention it now. The foods, the water, the air, the additives, the chemicals in the beauty products and all of the different body products and all of the pesticides in the food, the chemtrails, all of this stuff is contributing to digestive upsets and to an accumulation of a toxic load in the body. So we are going through a physical detox too. And it's kind of an ongoing thing. Now, with the digestive issues, some of it's frequency, some of it's food, some of it's the chemicals and all of that, and some of it's the ascension process. So when we go through these activations, if you're sensitive to energies like I am, you will notice, like I wake up sometimes and I barf. And it's not because I'm putting a bunch of toxins in my body more than others are, right? It's they're everywhere, but it's really because I'm so sensitive and my body can tell what's happening in the energetics, right? So that is something that we're going to be noticing. They call it the Ascension flu, and it comes and goes, right? And you may have it for a day and then feel great the next day and then have it again the next day. It's part of a detoxification process, spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. So some of the other symptoms that we're going through are the major completions, right? So you're noticing that you're just unwilling to continue on with some of the old stuff that you've been dealing with, like just done, turning and walking away. And, you know, like dumpster fire style where you just toss it and go. And really, this is a release from the past, the same thing as the shifting of the identity, right? And our identity is constantly changing. We're upgrading and updating our spiritual identity all the time because we're expanding into our higher consciousness. You cannot stay in lower consciousness and higher consciousness at the same time. And it's challenging, very, very, very challenging to make these shifts because a lot of our beliefs, our core beliefs are being challenged right now. And we're seeing a lot of foolery in the world right now where it's almost unbelievable what some people are buying into and what some people are putting out there. It's very mind-boggling is what it is. But the thing is, right now we're on an inner journey, and yes, we have physical bodies. We are spiritual beings with physical bodies, but we're on an inner journey. And so sourcing reasons to feel upset outside of you is not really what you need to be up to right now. Go for it if you want to. I'm not telling you what to do. What I am saying is that the opportunity to go within and get into this neutral space, right? And by neutral, I don't mean not caring and not taking action. I mean that you're holding your center regardless of what's going on outside of you. And some of you are in situations that are extremely challenging. Like, it would be hard for anybody to hold neutrality in that space, although you incarnated there, and there you are doing an amazing job holding space. And even if you get imbalanced sometimes, we all do, right? It's a matter of coming back to your center and asking yourself what you're committed to, you know? So when the masculine side is out of balance, the feminine side is out of balance. And this is internally and collectively. Right? And so we're seeking this balance within ourselves to find that center point of unconditional love. And that doesn't mean not having boundaries or tolerating poor behavior around you. That also means loving yourself so much that you stay in your center and you don't let the external things in the world distract you or throw you off of your true path. That's huge because as we're kind of passing through this lower astral, we're in the process. So we talk about fifth dimensional consciousness, multidimensional consciousness, 12th dimensional, 15th dimensional, whatever it may be, right? Now, most people want to talk about fifth dimensional consciousness, and that is the level of the soul. So fifth dimensional consciousness, in order to have that, you also have to be through fourth dimensional consciousness or expanded up into fourth dimensional consciousness. And I don't know very many people talking about fourth dimensional consciousness, which is the realm of the astral. So when we start to, each dimension has all kinds of degrees, different degrees that you can move through, right? That you do graduate through and expand up through, very much like a tree growing higher and higher, right? You've got roots established. And you're just growing upward, and it takes time and it takes awareness and great effort to do so, especially to maintain those higher levels. Now, when we pass through our awareness into the fourth dimension, this is when you start to hear entities and different beings, right? And if you don't realize or have refused to accept that there is a whole world of other beings around you in the unseen levels, unseen to the human eye. If you're clairvoyant, you can usually see them. But with these unseen levels, it doesn't mean they're not felt, and it doesn't mean they're not heard, because thoughts are in the field, right? And whether it's your thought or it's a thought of a being around you that you don't really see, this takes great distinction, right? So you need to be able to distinguish the different energies, if they're sourcing from within or if it's something in your field. Now, if you haven't watched my video on spiritual houses, I encourage you to go back and watch that, because I explain how trauma in your field and in your body can allow these different spiritual houses to be set up. And it's a form of like a nest for entities or for spirits. And you want to make sure that you're fine-tuning your field into beneficial interactions with these different elementals and entities. So by holding very toxic patterns, distorted patterns of light is what I call them, you're essentially being magnetic to the beings that match that. And this is why we have to heal all this trauma. Wrapping back around to my point, tuning into your inner guidance and discerning what is you and what is not you is part of the passing or expanding into, passing through, if you want to, the lower astral and just fourth dimension in general, right? So we're accessing the level of our soul. And that means all these lessons are just hitting hard, because the soul is very much the part of your light body that houses the lessons. So it's kind of like the school level, right? And this is why we're having so many completions. And this is why we're going through all of this chaos and craziness, because collectively we're starting to access that as a whole, right? That's huge, huge, like monumental, huge. But It's also creating intense chaos, breakdowns, loss in so many areas of life as we go through these completions. We're also learning to detach a bit from the materialism, meaning that placing value on a bunch of luxury items or having the biggest house or fastest car is definitely fading away in a lot of the population. And what is coming in instead is connection and experience, right? We'd rather shift into unity and dance together and make art together and make music together and work together in cooperative ways rather than compete with each other or have some have and some not have, right? The haves and the have-nots, because that have and have-not creates an imbalance in the collective. And so if you've been going through these really intense challenges, there is an end to it. And being gentle with yourself and being gentle with others is really, really important, my friends. This is so challenging and so tough and heart-wrenching and heartbreaking for many of us as we complete these past things. One more thing that I want to say. I like to talk about nexus points. So in a lot of my older videos, I talk about these nexus points. Now, a nexus point is when you're passing through the same energy over and over, kind of like a time loop, but not really a time loop. It's a similar energy so you can have completion with it. And we are on a huge nexus point from when humanity actually fell. So if you've heard that humanity has risen and fell multiple times before, just wiped out, right? We're at that same nexus point where it's a pivotal point in our timelines where we have to make a choice as a collective if we want to unify and come together, or if we want to stay in conflict and all of us fall. Because you know what they say, united we stand, divided we fall. And I'm not trying to take that from anything. I don't actually know who to quote on that, but the thing is, it's very relevant, right? Because when we come together, we all get to thrive. And when we get divided and we start to fight amongst ourselves, which these controllers love to set us up for the divide and conquer strategy. It's a strategy in war that has worked over and over and over, but it's time for us to stop being at war with each other. It's time for us to really come into our hearts and treat each other like brothers and sisters, because in truth we are. So this nexus point is bringing up a lot of problems in housing and stability and having a stable place, having a home. You can see it around the entire world. So that has to do with your root, your very foundation, right? And that has to do with housing. It has to do with money. It has to do with food. It has to do with survival. And you can see this is a huge collective issue right now. So working together to solve these problems and not being misled by these misleaders who want to distract you and get your attention into their agenda, okay? So, my friends, I love you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your presence, and I hope you join me on Instagram. I have a class coming up that I would really love to see you in, and I also have a Q&A coming up on October 7th. If you would like to join me in that, you can ask questions, and it's a Zoom call, and it is limited because I want to interact with people, not just have a bunch of people there that can't ask their questions, right? Same with my class. All my classes actually are smaller. I also have a class and some revocations on LearnDesk. Somebody asked about revocations. That's spiritual contract revocations. And that allows you to clear the different unseen contracts that you signed before you came into this experience, and also from other lifetimes, or that your lineage signed for you. So much love, family. Bye-bye.